Welcome to Pondering Passages. I'm Kurt Austin. My good friend David Mullins is going to join us shortly, and we are going to ponder Psalm 26. And I cannot wait to dive into this. I've really enjoyed reading it every day this week, and we will then be able to talk about that and figure out what it might have to say as we think about what it means to follow Christ, to follow God in our own lives, and along that journey. So join us, and we will see you back here shortly. Welcome back to Pondering Passages. I'm so glad that you've joined us this week. I love Psalm 26. I don't know that I've ever really read it before, Dave. I mean, with this,
I'm sure you've read
where
it.
it registered like this.
Okay.
What'd you think of it? This is David Mullins, by the way. My good friend David Mullins.
And the guy over there is, of course, not the one and
Not
only.
the only. There are a lot of them.
Charles Curtis.
Charles
Awesome.
Curtis.
Yeah.
One day I thought I wanted to interview every person I could find named Kurt Austin and figure out their story. So I just started looking them up on Google, and I got to know several, but
Really?
it ended up being not that exciting. They're all just as boring as I am. So that's how that played out. So we're in Psalm 26. So for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, what we do every week is we read the same psalm every day. And then at the end of the week, we get together, we talk about it, we ponder it. The goal is just to see how does that help form our spiritual journey, right? Not so much for information, but more for formation. And so we're really glad that you've joined us, that you found us, and that you're able to join this conversation. So is there any reason that we can't just dive right into this, Dave?
There's no reason whatsoever.
Excellent. So we're talking about Psalm 26, which is a Psalm of David, and it's very, very nice. I really liked it, partly because as I read, let me read the first four verses for anybody who might be listening.
I think I know why you liked it, because you're like,
you don't know why I liked it.
It describes the prayers that you have every morning. This is your prayer. This is how you interact with God. I know it is.
No, actually, let me read verses 1-4. Declare me innocent, O Lord. I have acted with integrity. I have trusted in the Lord without wavering. Put me on trial, Lord, and cross-examine me. Test my motives and my heart, for I am always aware of your unfailing love, and I have lived according to your truth. I do not spend time with liars or go along with hypocrites.
That is you to a T.
So this is actually, I want to counter that because
you think this psalm is about you.
Is about you. Oh, I like that. Oh, that should be our new theme song. So no, I like this because I started thinking about this not in the context of my life universal, everything that I've done or everything that I am right now. What I realized is that this whole psalm could be very situational. So one of the I read a commentary about it, and they said that picture the psalmist as if he was standing trial for a particular crime, but he knows he's innocent of that crime. Right. And I really paralleled that to, so I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. So if you have to go into court to pay a traffic fee, let's say I got caught speeding and I had to pay that ticket. It doesn't then I'm showing up before the judge. Here's my problem that I have to account for. It doesn't take into account every wrong decision I've ever made in my life. Right. They're not running down the list at that moment. And it really helped me to think about it as I read this, that this is kind of if I were approaching God about a circumstance, not my life story, if that makes sense.
It does.
I disagree heartily, but it does make sense.
No, it does. I'm trying to figure out if that's what the psalmist was saying.
Well, I mean, when you go to trial, put me on trial, Lord, and
Yeah.
cross-examine me, test my motives and my heart. I mean, if you're on trial, you're not on trial for your very character, or you're on trial for a moment,
Right, but
right?
when he says, "For I'm always aware of your unfailing love, and I have lived according to your truth," it just makes
Well,
me think it's a little
that's
bit
hyperbole. It's just
okay.
hyperbole. Okay, yeah, I did struggle with that a little bit, but I kept trying to bring it back to that moment, right?
Yeah.
If let's say somebody accused me of stealing money out of the church coffers.
Again? Sorry.
I can laugh about that because that never happened, and that's absolutely, I'm blameless of that. I'm not blameless of everything, but I'm blameless of that,
That, yeah.
which is another great example, right? I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but if you were to say, well, you screwed up here, I can say when it came to that, I was always faithful. I lived according to God's truth on that line. I didn't hang out with other church robbers, and I didn't go along with people who said they weren't a robber when they really were. I wasn't hanging out with hypocrites on that. So I don't know. I could dovetail this into that situation pretty easily.
Yeah, I think for me, I thought of like Psalm 1, where the psalmist talks about the one that does not walk in the path of sinners or sit in the seats of mockers, but instead they delight in the law of the Lord. And I think that word delight is very important. And on his law, they meditate day and night. And so I don't know, and this might be way off, but I always think that the psalmist and some of the others might have been a little bit more faithful than what I am. Their hearts might have been a little bit more pure, and so I could see a psalmist uh, in some ways. I mean, not that that they probably thought they were completely innocent, or else they wouldn't have been. A little later, he talks about "Don't put me in with the sinners," so you could see that there's a little bit there. But I think he's basically having this prayer for God and saying, uh, I've been faithful to you. Uh,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to remember what the I don't know if I ever got a final focus of what the psalmist was trying to accomplish with the prayer. What
Interesting.
is one of the commentators said it basically continues the conversation from Psalm 25. It's like this conversation
I could
with
see
God.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could see that. All right. Well, let's go. Oops. Sorry.
You asked me a question earlier in the week, and you talked about, I think it was entertainment,
Oh yeah,
and
I did.
that
Yeah.
very last verse. Do I, when I'm watching these shows, am I actually hanging out with liars and spending time with hypocrites? I thought that was a question that I don't want to think about. But anyway,
Well, yeah. So actually, no. That's so. Dave and I try not to talk about these. We have enough to talk about where we don't have to sit down and kind of
yeah,
hash out what we want
yeah.
to talk about. But I had read this on day one. Actually, it was the next day, and we were talking with each other,
Oh,
and I
that's
was
right.
really,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I was really motivated by verse 4, um, and and also challenged by the television I watch, um, movies, whatever it is, where I revel in the mysterious storytelling and the violent activities, um, for a 2 hour break, right, from reality, and I go into there. Well, am I actually hanging out with liars and hypocrites, with violence, and people who
Yeah.
plan against others? And let's use Jason Bourne, right? He's fighting for good, but my goodness, he's got a path of destruction in
Yeah.
his wake. Well, am I saturating my spirit with those images and with that content?
And I think those are the kind of questions that the Psalms should cause us to ask. Instead of
It
just
did.
reading through it and uh, figuring out, oh, well, this was the context it was used in, and it's like, I mean, God, what does this mean for me and my daily
Well,
life, and
maybe
whether I
that's
should watch
why
that next episode or not?
maybe that's why I preferred to think about it as situational
Yes,
justice as opposed to a lifestyle
yeah,
decision.
yeah, yeah.
Darn it, you're catching me on all these
No,
things.
I'm not. I mean, it's the psalmist. So
So verses 5 through 8, I hate the gatherings of those who do evil, and I refuse to join in with the wicked unless it's on HBO Max, and then I just kind of have to hang out. Verse 6, I wash my hands to declare my innocence. I come to your altar, O Lord, singing a song of thanksgiving and telling of all your wonders. I love your sanctuary, Lord, the place where your glorious presence dwells.
yeah,
That's pretty good.
yeah. Reading through here, it's like, oh, what would it be like to live a life like this? I know our culture would say it's very boring. I don't think so. I think this is a beautiful description. Singing songs of thanksgiving, telling of God's wonders. Being in the place where His glorious presence dwells.
Hmm.
What I think it's something to aspire to. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
And I really like the contrast of verses 4 and 5 with 6 and 7 and 8.
Mm,
I stay away from these things and I actually experience this side of it,
yeah,
which is they're polar opposites.
yeah,
Really, it's not like a black and a white, and then there's this gray zone you can live in. It's I'm refusing this, but I'm bringing on this. I love my sanctuary, your sanctuary, not mine, yours. Um, Telling of all your wonders. I really, the other thing that I really liked about this psalm is that I heard some of the early hymns that we sang growing up. Um, I love to tell the
oh
story.
yeah,
I mean, just kind of
yeah,
those kinds of things. And
yeah.
then the last verse in this is about the solid rock. I stand on a solid rock. On Christ the solid rock I stand. So I don't know. There were just several things that happened in this that I loved. Anything else about 5 through 8?
I don't no, no, I think I'm ready to look at the next page.
All right. 9 through 12. Don't let me suffer the fate of sinners. Don't condemn me along with murderers. Their hands are dirty with evil schemes, and they constantly take bribes. But I'm not like that. I live with integrity. So redeem me and show me mercy. Now I stand on solid ground. I will publicly praise the Lord.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, given the first few verses talking about, I don't do this, I don't do that, this is what
Hmm.
I do.
Hmm.
Why would he suffer the fate of sinners at that point?
Yeah, if he's
He's basically gone through and said, I don't act that way, I don't do those things. Don't let me suffer that fate. Don't condemn me along with murders. And so it seems like there's some other stuff going on, but I don't know, maybe not. Maybe he's just saying,
well,
let me go down that same path that they do.
it's not hard to look around and realize that just because, well, I mean, only the good die young, right? Is the Billy Joel,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Billy
And and
knows.
and and I
He's
think
quite
that's
old, so he knows.
and that's the reality, right? I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter how good we are, or how much of the right things
Yeah.
we have done, we end up suffering because of that.
That's true. And maybe that was, kind of his thing with the Psalm. And I think somewhere I read that some scholars believe that this was prayed as someone that was ill.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and the commentator I was reading was basically saying, you really can't tell it from the context, which I agree with.
Hmm.
But you could see someone who was ill basically saying, I've been living a good life. I've been doing what's right. Don't let me suffer the fate of those that don't.
Hmm.
Uh, and in the Old
Hmm.
Testament, I think that was a little bit more, that belief more prevalent than today, because Jesus talks about the rain falls on the just and the unjust, and so in the end, it's you're not being rewarded for your actions or really punished for your actions. It's really about uh, living a life that's in consistency with God, and there is joy and blessing just from that consistency.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's not uncommon to hear people talk about karma. If I've done a good thing, then I'm going to get paid
Yeah,
back with good things.
but
And
this is a
I
little pet
know this
peeve
is
of
a
mine.
pet peeve that you
Yeah,
have.
because you know what karma teaches, right?
Yeah. There's no such thing as instant karma.
No, no, it's the next life. So
Right.
you're gonna have to wait a while. Don't say, "Oh, this is karma," because it's like, well, maybe if in some, I mean, I don't believe this, but if you believe in some past life, maybe you were a real jerk, you know?
You're paying. That's why you can't get that raise you keep asking
Yeah.
for.
I often talk about, I'll do something and someone will ask me, and I go, "Well, that's future Dave's problem." But there are some times where it's like, that past Dave, he was a pretty great guy. He got me set up so that now's going really well. Oh, I could just see if you lived in karma. It's like, oh, that previous jerk Dave, who knows what he did to get me in this mess? Not my fault.
Well, I mean, we're always redefining words. And so I think when they're talking instant karma, I think it's probably being redefined. There aren't too many people in middle Indiana who believe in karma as this was my past life and this is my
Yeah.
future life.
Yeah.
They really believe in more of I did a good thing today, so I'm going to be
Yeah.
rewarded for that.
Well, Paul talks about, and this is biblical. Paul talks about you reap what you sow. So, you invest, you sow good things, then you will reap good things. And so I think that's where some of that mentality might come from. But we know that in this world with sin, that sometimes you reap good things and you sow good things and you reap, something that someone's ran over with their 4x4 because they're just being jerks. Kind of feels like this is falling, going off the rails, jumping the shark. I don't know.
No, no, I just was. I went back to a time when my brother and I were driving. I had that little Datsun 510, and we were driving, and I was going a little too fast, and I didn't make the turn, and we just left the road and went right through a cornfield. I mean, we just drove right through it. No fault of the
Yeah.
farmer. He'd done a
Nope,
good
nope.
job.
He sowed good seed, but yet some couple of teenage hooligans just
I
run
was,
through my crops.
I was pretty impressed. I was able to get out of there, but pretty scary there for a
Yeah,
minute.
and the poor farmer's like, "There's $1,000 damage right there." They just
When I
took
worked
off.
at when I worked at the Davis Purdue Ag Center, my job was and this was when I was 18 to 21, 22, and my job was to mow the side ditches, right? And it was because they were really cared about how things looked.
Mm,
And so I had this bush hog on the back of the little tractor, and I'm driving it in the side ditch, and um, well, there was a point where the side ditch was thinner than the bush hog, right? And then it ran up against a fence. Actually, it was off to the side of the field. I didn't know. I just drove the length of the field and mowed down about 2 or 3 rows of corn the full length of the field. Turns out that's not what you're supposed to do, and I was informed of that
no. Yeah, I'm
in
sure
no
you were.
uncertain terms.
Yeah.
And he did. He kind of calculated it up. He said, "Do you know how much that cost us in corn?" No, I don't know. And he was able to tell me.
Wow.
So I was concerned he was going to take it out of my paycheck, but he
As
was a
he
good
would have
guy.
been right to do.
Yes, yes, he would have. Well, I think that kind of sums up 26 pretty well. I think well, let's go on record. We never can cover everything in a psalm,
No, no,
right?
you can't
There's
say
too
everything.
many. No.
But the one thing I will say is to follow Kurt's example and find something that you connect with that causes you to ask questions about how you're approaching life.
Mhm.
You know, and it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. You might say, "Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of folks that I used to hang out with that I don't anymore because it was not a good influence and not a
Mhm.
good witness."
That's a great point, Dave. I mean, it doesn't always have to be negative. We tend to go our New Year's resolutions are often kind of I won't do this, or, I will do this because this is an area of weakness in my life. And so I'm going to do this to try and fix it. We tend to slide that way. So that's great. All right. So if you are interested in hearing more about Pondering Passages, .com, then we would invite you to come to visit us at our website, or visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or you can join us on ponderingpassages.com. And there you'll see our videos, and you'll see some blogs. Dave and I have been negligent in writing blogs for a little while. So if you've been there, you're wondering why is there no new content? Why is there nothing for me to think about? It's because we're both really busy. The fact we even get together like this every week is a miracle.
It is a miracle. It is a miracle.
It's
like
that's a
parting the
Pondering Passages miracle. Well, we want to invite you back next week. We're going to do the same thing, only we'll be talking about Psalm 27. And so read it every day. And then when you get with us and you join us, then you can kind of give us some feedback. Say, well, this is what stood out to me. We would love to hear those kind of comments. Yeah. Here's what stood out to me. If you're listening on our podcast, or if you're watching this on the video and you want to give a little comment, that would just be so exciting to say, when I was reading it, I thought about this. We would love to hear that. So otherwise,
live it, repeat.
That's so good. I'm going to put that on the back of a shampoo bottle.
There you go. There you go.
All right, folks, have a great day, and we will see you back here in about a week.